they'll be subservient to you. No. I can't live on the same planet with those five brothers. There must be war. There's other things that happened after that, but there was war. Every effort was made to avert the war, even bending over backwards and going against Dharma, just to pacify Duryodhana, the leader of the bad guys. So there was a war. So the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita is, they're lined up. Arjuna asks Krishna, please describe, the blind father of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra is his name. He is blind and he has an assistant who's right next to him. He just serves him. The assistant's name is Sanjaya. And Sanjaya has this mystic ability given to him by Vyas, because he's a disciple of Vyas, to have like a television inside his heart. He can see what's going on over there, although he's over here. High technology. They don't teach that at Syracuse University. So Sanjaya is narrating to the king, who is on the battlefield, on this side, who is on that side. And then there's the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna says, I can't do this. And here's my reasons why. Here's 7 really good, virtuous reasons why I'm out of here. Let them take the kingdom. I'll just go to the forest, live like a mendicant. I don't have to rule. I'll just change who I am. But Krishna says you can't change who you are. You are who you are. You're a spirited protector of innocent people. And those people are violators of innocent people. You have to protect the innocent people. You have to do your duty. Well, I shall not fight. And he drops his weapons. And he's trembling because he knows he's not right. Just that he's bewildered. By Krishna's arrangement, Arjuna is bewildered. From the inside his heart, Arjuna is bewildered. He turns to Krishna and says, I don't know what's best for me. We're cousin brothers. Let's, for the time being, I'll just accept you as my guru. Shishas teham sharimam tvam prapana. Prapana means to surrender. Prapana means surrender. I surrender to you. I accept you as my shiksha guru. Shishash teham sharimam tvam prapana. I'm surrendered unto you, please instruct me. Then comes Bhagavad Gita. Within Bhagavad Gita, it's a step-by-step explanation of one way to describe what Bhagavad Gita is. It's a description of the yoga ladder. It starts with Sankhya Yoga, to know who you are, at least notionally. You're not the body, you're spirit, soul. Then comes to more of a challenge, how to act that way. In practical everyday life, how to really act that way all the time. And there's an obstacle. One of the obstacles is attachment to the results of work. So then there's Karma Yoga, following Sankhya Yoga. Who are you and how to be detached from the fruits of your work, and so forth and so on, through the whole of Bhagavad Gita. And the conclusion, we'll just ask her. The conclusion is, all these things that I've taught you, they're important, but they're subordinate to one thing. And that one thing is Mam Ekam. Ekam means one. Mam, unto me. Mam Ekam. Sharanam. Sharanam means surrender. She knows. She's surrendered. We're trying. You're trying.
Yeah.
You're trying.
How do you know that you are surrendered?
Oh, that's a nice question.
I've been battling to get an answer to it for a long time.
Okay, there's 3 places. Let's just do that afterwards. Okay?
Yeah.
There are 3 places. 3 places where that question is asked and Krishna gives an answer. There's slightly different answers. I mean, the language is slightly different, but it's the same answer. But we'll go there at the end. So that's Bhagavad Gita. And it's been around for a long time. It was written over 5,000 years ago, and it's very popular. There's so many editions, translations, and so forth and so on. So this presentation is a very simple presentation on what three sets of people, Oxford University professors who teach Bhagavad Gita in an ivory tower style, and then people that teach Bhagavad Gita systematically in Bhagavad Gita study sessions, a few months and you cover Bhagavad Gita. And then persons like me that just mix with people in general and collaborating how to help people of this world that aren't in the ivory tower of Oxford University to understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita. That was the project. So they call it Gita Values. There's many, but they chose 6 and they're sequential. And they'll write a little paragraph and revise it, refine it, so it's just anybody can understand what those 6 values mean. And then there's the package of Bhagavad Gita in terms of Gita values. So there's the values, and then there's the culture of those values. Culture means, let's take a look at what culture means. There's the iceberg of culture. We did this yesterday evening, but it's no harm in repeating it. I learned something. It's good to give credit where credit is due. So this image came from somebody else. It came from a person I know who got his PhD in something. And I think it's organization development, but it probably has a different name. Something like that. Structures of organizations. So this is one of their images. They call it the iceberg of culture. And let's just say, a company buys out another company and they want to assess business management, right? They want to assess what do we want this newly bought out company to look like. So they have some procedures. One of them is, what's our mission statement? So that's one. It's in the values section. So at the tip of the iceberg is what you can see. It's measurable things. Whoops. This is what their language. Artifacts, behavior symbols, anything that comes in touch with the senses. So anything, clothing style, colloquial speech, things that you can hear or perceive, music, and so on. Architecture, dance. Anyway, so those are cultural things. Observable, measurable, perceivable things. The tip of the iceberg in culture. And then below the tip is, there we go, stated values, explicitly stated values. These are things that I or we, our group, our nation, our organization, our family or whatever, that we consider important. These are things that are important to us. Like Prabhupada did that when he established ISKCON. To register an organization in New York State, you have to state what the purposes of the organization are. That's this one. The 7 purposes of ISKCON is a statement of these are things that we hold important. And then the government takes a look at it and evaluates, does it fit into this box or does it fit into that box? So it fit into the box of religious organization, so it was approved by the state of New York. Recognized religious organization with their official beliefs, mission statements, what we say is important. Now, behaviors can impact values. Values can drive behaviors, so there's interplay between them, naturally, organically. And Then there's the rest of the iceberg. And the rest of the iceberg is um, unchanging realities, unchallenged certainties, implicit convictions. So one of them, here's the for example. For example, we're a spirit soul. Our own values may change, our behaviors may change from one person to another person, one culture to another culture. That there may be variations, but there's some things that don't change. We're all spirit soul. That's the bottom of the iceberg. And the ideal spiritual culture is to align the bottom of the iceberg with the values and the behaviors. And then your life is a refinement of those things. So we're going to be focusing on the stated values. That's what these authors decided to do. But it's resting upon something, and it's exhibited by something. That's what we wanted to know. How do you know when you're there? When the bell ring, it says you're there. We spent some time yesterday with this slide. There's knowledge, for example, in Bhagavad Gita. One of these questions at the beginning of chapter 13, one of the questions at the beginning of chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, 13 is the next, there's 6, 6, and 6. And 13 is the beginning of the final 6. So, Arjuna wants to know 6 things. What's knowledge and the object of knowledge? What's the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities? So, knowledge, the answer that Krishna gives is that verse, chapter 13, verse 8 through 12. If you want, what's the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita? There it is. But you look at it carefully and you'll see that it's largely it's qualities. Because a person that has knowledge has qualities. A person that has knowledge has qualities. When those qualities are exhibited, then you know the person has knowledge. If someone has information, but they don't have knowledge, then they don't have those qualities. They say one thing and they do something else. Or they talk high and the behavior is low. This is detail maybe you'll appreciate. During Srila Prabhupada's time, one of the biggest Sanskrit professors in the United States, maybe in the world, was Professor Dimmock. He wrote an appreciation for Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's writings. Maybe you know about this? After he did that, he had like a following. He was like a hero, a Socrates or a Plato or a dude that had followers. People thought highly of him. Later, they complained. In fact, we had a really hard time getting into the University of Chicago because his students that followed behind him knew that he signed that appreciation when he was drunk. Now, I didn't know that until we tried to open the doors of University of Chicago and they slammed the door. And then we found out why they slammed the door. Is somebody, they say, I don't know if it happened, but they say he actually didn't like Prabhupada and Prabhupada's writing because he was an impersonalist. And he signed the thing when he was drunk. I don't know if it's true. But saying one thing and having behavior that's something else that's not what knowledge is. Knowledge is you have qualities. And those qualities are wanted. So there's a distinction between knowledge and information. So in Bhagavad Gita there's information, but what we really want is, to apply that information in our lives in a practical way. That's what Gita Values is doing. So now, here's one more slide, and we're ready to begin. This is a nice artwork. On the left side is a mountain or a cliff or a plateau. On the right side there's another one, and there's a doorway. So this is where we are. And there's a big gap between where we are and where we want to go, generally, in life. What to speak of qualities, even just like getting your MBA, there's a big gap between, that there's work to be done. And in between there's that gap, that's one way of describing what that gap is a liminal space. It's a term that's used in sociology. Probably all of you know that Hiranyakashipu got a benediction from Brahma that he couldn't be killed inside or outside.
Yeah.
He wasn't killed on the inside or the outside, he was killed on the patio. Neither inside or outside, a liminal space. So, when we're transitioning from where we are to where we want to go, it can be discomforting, it can be uncomfortable. So sometimes people just stay in their comfort zone and they don't go. But if you get out of your comfort zone and start to go, then A, you're going to feel uncomfortable, but B, you're making headway towards where you want to go. Just be sure you know where you want to go and how to get there. In Bhagavad Gita, the middle 6 chapters tell you how, where to go and how to get there. So if you become familiar with Bhagavad Gita, you have some hope you're going to get there, and there's a guarantee that you're going to get there because Krishna will help you get there. That's yoga, linking with the Supreme, not just doing something. It's not a behavior modification exercise, it's a taking shelter of Krishna and moving to where you want to be. Spiritually, the spiritual culture message. Okay, now we're ready. That's a little background on what we're doing here. Yesterday we covered Gita value number 1, and Gita value number 1 sequentially is followed by Gita value number 2. And Gita value number 1 was Sama Darshana. Sama Darshana. Sama means equal. Darshana means
Vision.
vision. Equal vision. So there's the obstacles to equal vision and there's a solution. And it's a value that has a behavior connected to the value, but then there's also some, the bottom of the iceberg, the realization of who we really are. Then that's the basis of equal vision. Okay, so now we're going to go to Gita value number 2, which is ahimsa, or non-violence. Ahimsa. Now, ahimsa is not unique to Bhagavad Gita. I shared this yesterday. Values in wisdom literature are very much like values in other wisdom literature from other cultures, commonly. There's differences for sure. And we discussed a little bit about that. Like Buddhism, this is well known for Buddhism, ahimsa, non-violence. There's something missing. Let's see what that something missing is. Okay, here we go. In human history, it shows records of violence since years ago. And it hasn't stopped. There's violence currently, today, continuing in the present. It's a shape maybe a little different, but we all know very well there's violence in this world, in different scales and different ways of doing it. Okay, not moving. Oh. Yeah, thank you. Why? So why? It's what, now comes why. How is this violence related or not related to equal vision? Something I learned about this system is when you do what you just did, then the remote starts to work again. You have to do it manually. So here's a picture of Buddha. Ahimsa, this is the Buddhist conception, or common worldly conception. Nonviolence means to act in a way that causes the least harm. It's one of the simple arguments not arguments, rationale or reason why we become vegetarian. And people say, why are you vegetarian? But isn't it a better way, it's interesting if they don't say yes, isn't it, if you have two choices, I can live in such a way I cause more harm or less harm to others. The path that causes less harm to others is a better path. That's one reason about, your choice of foods. There's other reasons. But it's a non-violent reason, that which causes the least harm to other living beings. Non-violence means avoiding violence. And let's see. At every level, so here's some different levels. Physical, verbal, emotional. There can be violence on any one of those. The physical can cause emotional, verbal can cause emotional, but there's violence or avoiding violence at all levels. So it's like nonviolent communication. That's coming up shortly. There's another perspective. You like to know what that other perspective is? Another nonviolent perspective besides the commonly understood one? Oh, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like the slide to switch too. That would be really nice. Could you touch the screen? Okay, there you go. Look at, there's Bhagavad Gita. And there's the key at the bottom right, and we saw this yesterday. The lock at the upper left, that's in the shape of a heart. So the key goes into the lock, and you turn it. So again, nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body. But actually, here's a new refresh. Nonviolence means not to put others or oneself into distress. So there we are, the knowledge portion of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verses 8 through 12. And ahimsa is one of those features of knowledge, which means it's a quality. People in general are trapped, this is Prabhupada's purport, trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. You get the image, sticking your head in the sand. I don't want to see that stuff, so I stick my head in the sand. You've heard that expression, right? Okay, now it's going too far. Many times, people don't know what actually benefits them and what is beneficial for human society in general. Now, this is from chapter 10, next Transcendental Knowledge chapter, paraphrased purport. People are bewildered, or they don't know what's beneficial for them. That's common. Now, the human body, here's the Bhagavad Gita purport. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So any movement or any commissions which do not further that end, that's spiritual realization, commit violence on the human body. I'll say it again. That which does not promote spiritual realization is doing violence. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called nonviolence. It's a different definition. It's the spiritual well-being, violence, nonviolence, standard. Spiritual ignorance alienates people. It's the foundation for violence at any level. Physical, verbal, emotional. Spiritual ignorance. So how do you get rid of spiritual ignorance? Spiritual knowledge, right? That's Bhagavad Gita. Ahimsa, this is same purport. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. That's full is not just the academic, emotional, and intellectual part, or the physical part. Those are important, they're not zeros. But add at the same time, the full utilization is the capacity of human life for spiritualization, because it's not available in other forms of life. So there's two little interactive sections of this little presentation here, coming up shortly. Everyone knows who Marshall Rosenberg is, right? Anyone not know who is Marshall Rosenberg? Okay. You've heard of nonviolent communication, NVC. Yes? No. No? Okay. He's not living anymore, but he lived in Southwest Arizona or New Mexico or something like that. And Marshall Rosenberg established a school where he dedicated his life to teaching people a Bhagavad Gita principle. It's a Bhagavad Gita principle, 1715 Bhagavad Gita. Speech that is non-violent is described in 1715 Bhagavad Gita, and he taught it. Now he wasn't a Hare Krishna devotee, but he believed in non-violent communication. So I've seen some of the videos of his presentations, and so he has puppets and has role play and different things. So the one on his right hand, that's a jackal. So he says jackal speak, goes rah, 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 rah. That's the harsh speech. And then the other one, non-violent one, is the giraffe, and he explains the giraffe. Although his body is big, his heart, proportion to his body, is really big. So it's a big-hearted, non-violent person that knows how to say the same thing in a way that's non-violent. So then there's a whole school. I just fast forward. One of our ISKCON devotees, Bir Krishna Maharaj, studied with Marshall Rosenberg for about 3 years. He became his student. And then what he wanted to do is he felt this would be very valuable for devotees. So he took the principles and then, Krishnaized it, made it for devotees. And then he wrote a little small book. He calls it a different word, Empathic Communications. I really liked what he was doing. And so twice for Memorial Day weekend in Gitanagari, we invited him to come, and he gave the seminar part 1, seminar part 2, that led to other seminars here and there. One of our devotees in Chicago really picked up on it. They have now helped him translate his book into Chinese and taught it to the Chinese devotees. We just I mentioned this yesterday, I think. There's this event that you probably hear some more about. It's going to come in April. Every year it's been April for these, pandemic shut it down. Body, mind, spirit is kind of like a really simple introduction. So we had 3 of them, and 2 groups of people came to, it's a short, they're taking this empathic communication seminar and feeling that their lives are changing because of this. They're taking these principles of speech that's ahimsa based, and then it helps when you remove those internal obstacles that are blocking your spiritual progress, then it makes the spiritual progress go more smoothly. So it's nice. And that's the experience of the person who's teaching it. So, nonviolent communication. Think of a situation in your life where you felt non-acceptance of yourself or of others. With someone dear to you, they just were shunned or weren't understood and misunderstood and not treated nicely. How did you or they react to the situation? It's a reflection. Write it down. So you're not going to ask you to write it down. What were your feelings at that time? So this is sequential. This is going to lead to some discussion that comes at the very end, like we did last night. So process accordingly. So there's a pyramid of negative emotions and goes to higher emotions based on higher consciousness. But way at the bottom, guilt and shame are very dark emotions. So this is a hierarchy of needs that is taken from Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, and Pierre Krishna Maharaj has added it into his, or Krishnaized it in his, recognizing your own psychological needs, your need for safety, love, belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization. The pyramid goes up, but some very, really basic ones, air, water, and physiological needs, and then protecting yourself and your property, and so forth. And part of this system, I'm not going to go into the system, but it invites the persons to understand what your needs are, and it's your responsibility, not somebody out there's responsibility, to see that your needs are met. And then when you're feeling that your needs are met, or you have a process to get there, then you can. This is just on the physical and emotional, or physical, mental level. You can have a relationship with someone else whose needs are different. We get married and you find out you have people that have different needs. There's samenesses and there's differences. So then how do you relate? So this helps. You know what your needs are, you know what their needs are, and you accept their differences. And you can assist. You can assist without any discomfort when you have your needs met. You say it the other way. If your needs aren't met, it's a little difficult. So, behind any negative emotion, there's an unmet need. This is the premise of nonviolent communication. So, what need was unmet when you felt the negative emotion in that situation from the previous slide? We're going to ask you to discuss this a little bit towards the end. So, listen carefully. Please write down the most important need that you had at that time. The one that was unmet, and something came up, and it was very disturbing because there was a need that wasn't met. And there was in this pyramid over here. These are needs. The most basic one is somebody's gagging you and you can't breathe. You know that one. Okay. Let's see. So here's a slide. Someone's in their head, and the bird in their head is them, and it's in a cage. Close your eyes. Look at yourself as a bird that's sitting in a cage, trying to get all your needs met by others. How does it feel? Doesn't feel good. Does it feel disempowering? Then let the bird out of the cage. You need to meet your needs. Know what your needs are. Make a strategy to meet your needs. Close your eyes again. Go back to that situation. Look at yourself and others in that situation as spirit souls. The body that you and others are in, the resultant emotions, that's the subtle covering, everyone's needs, they're coverings. The field of activities and its interactions. Hey, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. This is the guideposts to get to contentment within on the spiritual level includes the holistic picture of life that also has to be looked after. It's not everything. The everything is the soul, but it's the holistic picture, in other words. Okay. Now, from this sacred meditative space, please see how your vision of yourself, others, and the situation changed from non-acceptance to acceptance, respect, and service. That was pretty quick, wasn't it? It may, you know, it can take a while to get to that, but that's the method, step by step. Look at meeting your needs from this sacred space where expectations and frustrations are replaced with a mood of respect and service. So that's this what the seminar that's the people that attended the Body Mind Spirit session are doing. There's something like 13 people that are attending every session. They really like it, and they want to go keep going after they're done with the whatever the 10 sessions or whatever it is. They want to go more deeply into Bhagavad Gita because they're feeling their needs are met, and now their spiritual well-being is actually rising as a need and something that's important to them. Remember the values, explicit values, stated values. This is something that so. And then the foundation, the bottom of the iceberg is we're actually spirit soul. That's an unchanging reality. So bring your value system up a bit, and then you're going to connect with that the bottom of the iceberg. Say the opposite. Don't connect with who you really are, and you're trying to get your needs met by others meeting your needs, and that's called material life. Or you're bullying, just like push everybody out of the way, and we're not independent. So how to have interdependent or relationships that are wholesome? Social needs is one of the needs. Okay. Full realization of our spiritual nature is to become connected to the real us and to the divine nature. That's Krishna, by the way. See, there he is in the heart of the lady that's inside the heart of the lady. Once connected that way, then this is yesterday's value. Equal vision. Samadarshana. Now, the sage that has equal vision, he sees differences, and he relates to different persons according to those differences. But simultaneously, there's knowing who the person or the entity really is that spirit soul. And the dog eater has his needs, and the dog has his need, and the cow has his needs or her needs, and everyone has their needs. So the picture starts to fill in when you have at the foundation the understanding of who you really are, and this ahimsa touches certainly on who you really are, and it also encompasses the holistic picture of the coverings. And it must. It's incomplete if it doesn't. Okay. Here's another graphic that says the same thing. In the center, there's nonviolence to self and family. It says circle expands, community, society, nation, humanity, all species of life. But it starts yourself and those most immediately connected with you. Okay. Now, I don't know if you. No. Okay. Okay. So maybe we can do this. Maybe we just go back here and see if if you want to have some discussion on this topic. I mean, it's a seminar unto itself that has many parts, but is this something that would be worthwhile? This thing. Freedom that comes from not having an idea of what your needs are. When you're expecting others to meet your needs, there's the finger pointing thing, and you're frustrated with people that didn't meet your needs. And then, when you know what your needs are, you have a strategy or a method for taking care of your needs. And then you can have meaningful exchanges with other people whose needs may be different than yours, and it's just fine. You become accepting of different needs. resting upon the acceptance of another person as a spirit soul that has their particular set of way of going about their needs. And you, as a friend or a companion or whatever it is, you want to serve and assist them, ultimately in spiritualization effort, while at the same time honoring that what they understand their needs to be and respecting what their needs are. And while you're not compromising or trashing your own needs. Is this a good topic to have a discussion on? Maybe it's 8 o'clock. Maybe we'll just go to your question. You just sit down again because this isn't needed anymore. So you want to know how you when you're what's how do you what's when is the bell ring? It says
Not when is the bell ring, but like, so you know you want to surrender, and with that, how do you know that you've surrendered or not? Like, what's
there are symptoms that things are this is Prabhupada speaking. Things are understood by their characteristics. You know what Prabhupada's profession was before he became, a monk or a sannyasi? He was a chemist. He had a chemistry company. So I've noticed, he often explains things in terms of understanding what a certain commodity is, a certain chemical, and it has characteristics. So similarly, you know when there's characteristics. So there's 3 places that you'll find those characteristics identified. Chapter 16, Divine and Demoniac. Chapter 13, the characteristics or qualities of one who is situated in knowledge. But divine and demoniac, and the divine characteristics. If divine characteristics are there, because it's only going to be there if one is surrendered. Those are the characteristics. Divine nature. There's 16 items listed in that beginning section. So there's 2. Chapter 16, chapter 13. At the end of chapter 14 is the modes of nature. And at the end of that chapter, Krishna says, everyone's influenced by the modes of nature, and there's a rare, small group of some persons that are not. So Arjuna wants to know, can you tell me what are the symptoms of one who's not? That's chapter 14. And go back in chapter 3, and you'll find a set, so 4 parts. In chapter 3, Sthita Pragya, one whose intelligence is fixed. What are the characteristics? Sthita Pragya, remember that phrase. So the characteristics will tell you if this surrender has been achieved, or the degree to which it's been achieved. By characteristics. Those are 4 places.
Hey. Question.
Sure.
So, His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj, he met my father. He came to our place once, and he told my father that surrender is the essence of Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, it is.
And so the ultimate thing that you need to do is surrender. So surrender in terms of normal dictionary, it's like you just give everything and put it in the hands of the Lord. So whatever throughout the day you are doing, you just have to surrender it to Him, that He is making you do it, or He is guiding. It's His wish, and
you're the instrument, and He's the manipulator of the instrument.
Yeah. So, but then I didn't know. I wasn't sure how would you know that you have actually given everything to Him.
Well, know that you haven't. It's just a reasonable assumption, but how will you know? By characteristics. Now you can say subjectively, I feel this and I feel that. Then there's also things that there's the observable, the tip of the iceberg. When this is achieved, There's the symptoms. So you look at the symptoms.
So those 16 are.
Yeah, that's divine characteristics. Daivi Sampat. Divine characteristics. So you don't just go for the characteristics, you go for the surrender. But when the surrender is there, the characteristics will be there.
So it's a process. Never ending process.
Well, even when the stage of perfection is achieved, it's dynamic. It's not static. Perfect, more perfect, most perfect.
So if you say this to a child, they'll be like, okay, so what do? I wake up every morning and say to God that, okay, I surrender my day to you. Is that how you surrender?
Well, that's the starter. Then what happens during the day? Oops, I had a little memory lapse. I was thinking something else. But it's a cultivation. It's a process. It's a step-by-step process. Yes, Balaram.
Yeah. There's a statement probably in chapter 13, because there is the verse that demoniac do not know what is to be done, what is not to be done.
That's chapter 16.
I'm sorry, divine and demoniac is what I was reading. And so it's either there, I think there's another verse as well that's speaking on that. Probably chapter 12. Anyway, Prabhupada makes the statement that a devotee always knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. So that should be a symptom if we ever find ourselves like, I don't know what to do with myself right now, or like, oh well, I know what I want to do with myself, but you don't have any knowledge of what Scripture is saying, or maybe you start, and then as we're studying the Scriptures, especially chapter 16, we were reading that the other night, and Ram Prabhu was like, oh man. Or what was it you were saying, like the first time you read that, right? Just like, I meet all the qualifications of a demon, right? It's like, you realize when you start studying that, wow, I'm not doing any of these things. So I also wanted to share, Rupa Goswami gives very helpful delineation of the process of surrender into 6 steps. Right? So the very first of those steps is to accept what the Scripture is saying. It's like, these are the things you should be doing with your day and your life, and as opposed to just having a desire to surrender. Rupa Goswami's like, I'll make it very simple for you. Do like this. And then the step 2 is don't do these things.
Well, it's editing.
Yeah.
He didn't list the things. He's describing a principle. The principle is things that are favorable for bhakti. That's what you accept. Things that are not or are unfavorable for bhakti, you don't.
Right.
You don't list the things, but you're guided by the principle. Yes.
How do we quieten this mind?
How do you do what?
How do we stop?
Quiet the mind.
Quiet the mind?
Yes.
Take a shoe and start banging. No. It's a gradual process. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. That's the first verse of Shikshastaka, Lord Chaitanya's teaching. That's the first step. Cheta is, Darpana means to cleanse. Marjana is to cleanse the mirror of the mind. The method is chanting of the holy name, which we're going to do shortly. The chanting of the holy name is the best. There's other things, but the best method to clean up the clutter. Accumulated for years together, or lifetimes together. And so that's the other systems of yoga. It's just connecting with the Supreme then there's the connection isn't good because there's clutter. But you continue striving to connect with the Supreme, and you find more clutter than you even knew was there, and also the capacity, the cleansing process is that connecting. Say the same thing a different way. Same thing. Step 4 is the step you're asking. Step 1, some little faith. Preliminary. There's a higher reality.
What if we want to have faith, but your ego comes in between?
Oh,
Like
that's
you
it.
think-
Welcome to the club. But preliminary faith is there is a higher reality. I'm not there. I've got ego in the way. And other stuff too. But there's a higher consciousness besides. I know it exists. That's step 1. This is Rupa Goswami. Step 2, Krishna sends some nice sadhu, a saintly person, into your life. And wow, I like this person, I like their vibes, I like. And then through that association comes that the third step is, with those sadhus you do things that sadhus do. Bhajana Kriya it's called. And then comes the cleansing. Through that Bhajana Kriya, or doing with sadhus things that sadhus do, then comes the cleansing. And yes, the ego is there, and other things that are corollaries of companions of our dear friend, false ego. And they confront us. But the power of cleansing is stronger. It's like a disinfectant. There's an infection, and the disinfectant attacks the infection. It may take some time, but that there's power in the disinfectant. There's power in the processes that connect us with the Supreme. Yoga connects one with the Supreme through association of people who are very genuine, sincere, and wholesome. They help you get there. Okay? Just stay in close association of persons who are pure in heart, more pure than I am, than you are, and I want to be in that association, and you're in good shape. Keep going. Will ego kick in? Sometimes more than sometimes less. It's always there. But you just keep going. You may need to take a step back, that's okay. You may need to take 3 steps forward, that's okay. But stay in good association. Sadhu Sangha. I think it's time for kirtan. That's the Bhajana Kriya part. Now, I'm supposed to go to another place as we go, because tomorrow we're doing something different. So I'm going to do 23 skidoo of the side door, and see you next time.
Thank you so much.